spray paint.
Right.
There's like 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like 5 colors. It's a 5-color blend. There's a little bit of white here. It's a little orange, light orange, a warm yellow, a light yellow, and white.
Wow. So
it creates a gradual blend.
When's your next show?
I have a show coming up in Paris in November.
That's where your last show was at too?
My last show was in Manhattan, in New York, at a gallery called 532 Gallery. My next show, I'm preparing for now. I'm starting to make some paintings, and the paintings I'm doing now, I'll bring to Paris, and then I'll be working there for 3 months.
All right, cool.
And just making that next body work.
Do you always do that thing, like I saw it in one shot, I don't know where it was, but where you had a bunch of paintings and then you spent like a night or two inside the studio, just kind of with 3 canvases, and you were fucking with the canvases, and then kind of drawing with a wall, and then...
Oh, well, I was doing mushrooms. I did that with crayon.
Yeah, and you were kind of, yeah.
Crayon, like these kids, crayon little things. Crayola, crayon things. Yeah, that was in LA. That was a long time ago. It was like 2011.
All right. Yeah.
That was a while.
What's like the I always feel like Chris Farley. Remember that skit where Chris Farley would interview people, and I shouldn't feel, like a battery of questions. I really don't, but I
well, stuff always sounds better when you relax and you just ask what you want to ask.
What was the jump like from being like a street kind of graffiti kid to becoming like a pretty established gallery artist?
Well, I think these things just sort of happen naturally. It's just the terms that become different. It's how people see you. So there are some people that there are some people that that'll call you a kid.
Right.
There are some people that...
When you first start, or even now?
No. I'm talking about something else. I'm saying that where we're at is just a perception.
Yeah.
So if I was to talk to an elderly relative, I'll say, "Oh, you're just a kid."
Right. Because he's like longer on his journey.
It's all a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
So, and then there are some people that see people as an adult. If I'm referring to, say, a girl who's maybe, 5, 6, 7 years younger than me, do I refer to her as a girl, a woman, a kid, a this, or that? It's all a matter of perspective. So,
I also think with the girl thing, I notice it's sometimes like habit. You know what I mean? Like I noticed, I guess, more because the world is like kind of a little more on in tune with that type of stuff. Like where you have to pay attention to the way you say things. I'll just say like, "Oh, he was talking to this girl," or and I've had people look at me. And the truth is, I kind of still speak the way I did when I was like 15. You'll
do that until you decide not to.
Yeah, it's something I've tried to consciously change, but then I think, how much of that do I want to pay attention to? And I'm not just speaking particularly about the girl thing, you know what I mean? I just, I don't know, man, the world has changed, and that's not, I don't mean that in a way like that.
Sometimes accomplishment changes the way that we refer to individuals.
Yeah.
Moments.
Have you felt that?
If you receive a doctorate, you instead of saying, sir, you say, well, call me doctor. Or if you're referring to your partner, if you're married, you will say, oh, this is my wife.
Right.
And it commands a different energy than saying, oh, this is my girlfriend. Partner is another more sort of distinguished,
democratic, or
neutral, cleansed term. But as far as I go, my name is Joseph.
Yeah, that's the truth.
as my name, and I started writing graffiti while I was living on Staten Island in the same neighborhood that you're from. And I got into graffiti when I was like 12.
Yeah.
And I just found it to fill a void that was in my life. I had just started to not live with my mom or my stepfather. And I went from having no freedom at all in chaos to having a lot of freedom and healing from chaos.
Yeah.
When I was living with my aunt. And I was looking for something. And, my brother, who's a little older than me, was looking for something as well at the same time. He got into smoking weed and like playing handball. We both played handball.
Yeah.
And like, you know, like fucking girls. That was what he really got into.
Yeah.
I was into chasing girls and stuff like that too. And I also got into graffiti. Started off like everyone else, just not very good, but I enjoyed, you know, the application of it, and I felt like there was so much to learn in it. But I had been drawing since I was old enough to draw. And when I got into graffiti, I already had a style or a way that I went to create. So the look of my graffiti had, you know, a correlation to what I was doing as a kid, as an artist.
How often do you think, just in general, about like childhood? You know,
how often?
Yeah,
about it all the time.
Yeah,
but I think that we're all. It's all dependent on the individual. You know, how much do you want to learn about yourself?
Right.
Do you have a desire to feed yourself with anything? I think there's a lot of people out there that are
shutting that off.
Well, yeah, that's one way to say it. But some people are just content with where they're at.
Surface level.
Where they're at is their security, and they found a rhythm. They like the routine of it all, and they marry themselves to their routine. That routine is their identity, and anything that, you know, starts to, you know, question or shake that foundation, people are often threatened by.
Right.
But a lot of that comes with growing up in this society in America, specifically in New York. You know, there are people that are doing things that are unaware of how self-destructive, how destructive these things are.
I often think, like, for someone like you, there's like multiple layers that you have to make it through in order to continue to do the work that you do now. And one of them is, it just reminded me of, it's like anything that is considered outside of the norm, people are threatened by, like, particularly with children, right? So like guys, girls who like draw notebooks all day, you know, they're looked down upon. Or like it's kind of killed, and so as a result, that creativity is killed. So even right there, you think about how many kids who like just bought into the idea of like the teacher built a house. It's like the kids are just drawing their notebook all the time. You know what I mean? So that's like the first kind of level of like you have to surpass that in order to go to that next level. You know?
Well, I think that as a kid, I definitely in school I became used to the idea of listening to lessons and then drawing during it. So classes that were friendly to that method, I did well in. Let's say it'd be history, English. I kind of missed science. I had some really terrible science teachers that couldn't keep control of the class, so some of the more foundational aspects of science I missed.
I've got the same issue, that and math, and I feel like one of my big regrets is telling myself I don't know math, because now I understand that there's an elegance behind it. I know that's at like a higher level, but I've always kind of just said, oh, you're not good at this, and therefore pursue.
I think math is just, you know, humans' way of understanding this environment. You know, I think that much of what we understand and more of what we don't understand can somehow be absorbed on a level with mathematics.
Right. So does that mean like say a guy like me, I don't even, so that, am I gonna miss vital lessons? That's the thing I think that I'm starting to realize as I get a little older, is that there's like vital lessons that I'll never fully grasp. My wife, for example, is a biology teacher, and she teaches she's really bright and when it comes to that stuff, and say I hike with her, camp or something like that, and I feel like there's another layer. It's almost like listening to music and having some theory, a knowledge of musical theory, so you can really say, wow, like I know what that guy's doing, or that woman's doing, opposed to just like naturally listening to it. Does that make sense?
Sure.
And then I realized that might be utter bullshit, like, because do you think, like, say for example, an art critic or someone with an art history degree needs to be, like, can particularly appreciate your work or walk into a gallery and appreciate it more than, say, like, a group of school kids?
It all depends on the critic. I think that we all have different tastes. Some people like to be fucking whipped during sets.
Yeah.
Some people like to fucking pee on. It might work for them, it doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah. I wonder how you
like
realize that. I wonder how you realize that sometimes. How does that come up? Like, what if you say, I'd like to be pissed on?
Motherfuckers figure it out when they're kids. I think you figure it out in adolescence, or you exhaust all of the excitement that you've had through conventional sex, and then you get whittled down into something excessive because perhaps there's something broken inside of you that you need to feed. Perhaps someone who's a control freak. In the rest of their life, they want to be submissive behind closed doors or something like that. I don't have those kind of tastes myself.
Yeah.
But there are those people out there. And I think that a lot of what we do as adults, much of it stems from, things that perhaps were pivotal, traumatic, impactful from your youth.
Right. Well, that's
personality. That's where personality comes from.
Yeah, it forms in those years. But that's what I often like. I've been thinking recently. It's like, is adulthood just like a constant representation in different behavioral patterns of your childhood? You know what I mean? How much does your childhood play into who you become? Or if there isn't like some sense of like free will, right? Is it just that you do have free will for a certain amount of time, but during that time, let's say 0 to 13, that's your free will period, right? And then everything after
that. For some.
That's the thing I always wonder. So is that how important? Obviously, your childhood is super important, and you want kids to have good childhoods, and so whether they're good or bad, but how much of that informs your later life, or just how you choose to live?
It all depends on the individual, because if we learned anything from nature, some of the best things grow out of shit.
It's true.
Manure, the more potent and diverse and decayed that manure is, the better something fruitful can grow out of it.
You're right.
If it was overly sanitized and cleansed, void of anything that's decomposing, you wouldn't get that same type of advancement.
Yeah, the analogy is almost like you don't want to be. It's like those people you're talking about who settle into a routine and kind of are living kind of like a surface level existence and aren't questioning reality other than what they're having for dinner. That's kind of like the Monsanto crop versus,
But routine, I think one of the
routine is important.
Well, one of the things that I've learned in, hang on one second.
No worries.
Let's close it a second.
Yeah.
It's probably the wrong bell. Who is it? Who is it? Ah, sorry about that.
Don't worry, man. I'll edit this later.
I think it's a good conversation we have going.
Of course. I always, that's why I feel comfortable talking to you too, because I
have no problem talking about it, getting really deep. I
have this thing where I can't talk to people. This is like a childhood thing maybe, but I feel like anyone that I've met after like 2005 or something, it's a lot of upfront work in order to feel comfortable, like calm.
What do you mean by that?
Like
a lot of upfront work with it. What is
like
that?
Maybe it has to do with that like childhood like knowledge or that knowledge of like I know you a little bit. You know what I mean? But like at a level where it's like
Wait, are you not bringing new people in?
I don't bring new people in. I have a very short list of people. I do. No, I meet people. I just mean like there's definitely a guard that I feel like I have to keep, or when I meet adults, so to speak. You know.
How does that make you feel?
I struggle a lot with that, man. Like I struggle
you're missing
a lot.
out to some extent?
I think so, and I've like intentionally put myself in situations over the last 10 years where I'm learning to like be challenged by things and put and be in new situations with new people, so that I don't kind of fall into that kind of idea that we're talking about. Is that I become ignorant in the fact that I believe that there's certain truths because I've decided there are, right? You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's one of the things that's really like, it's just dangerous in general, right? Like, if you just say like, I don't fucking like that X, Y, or Z, and you get stuck in your ways. And so I do things. I'll give you an example. Like I go to jiu-jitsu, right? And I really love all the guys there. We share common bonds. You know what I mean? The common bond is like we're training together. It's almost like I'm playing chess with a group of guys.
What are you training?
What am I training?
When you do jiu-jitsu, what are you training?
I am doing it personally.
Now what are you training?
I'm training my. I feel like everyone there has some need to work out stuff. Not me personally. I need to work out. Well, first of all, the idea that I think that I'm not athletic, you know, and I feel like that's a way to do that with not having to be in the gym and like feel that it's a futile type of like I don't know, a million type of like you're just fucking going like this. That feels real kind of empty to me. So it's challenging intellectually. It also allows me to do hard shit. I think that's the thing that I've tried to do over the last 10 years that's like kept me growing, is do things that I suck at. You know, whether it's like learning to play like 1920s, you know, blues music on guitar and like working really hard to get just minimally good at it, or things that I would just say to myself, my initial reaction is just like, you can't do that. You know what I mean? Like it's not in your, it's kind of like that, breaking that math bias, right? Like you can't fucking do math. So I try to do those things in order to challenge myself and also learn that like I don't have to be good at shit. You know what I mean? Like
yeah. Why does it have to be yes or a no,
right?
Good or bad, or
and the thing
light or dark?
With the jiu-jitsu thing, which really taught me a lot, is the majority of the guys there are people I'd either feel afraid of because they, you know, like a lot of them probably have like authority type of jobs, right? You know, like cops, firefighters, people like that. And
are those type of people doing jiu-jitsu now?
Of course, yeah. But there's also a lot of like really neat people who do it too. And those guys are neat in their own way. It's taught me to actually be a little more like understanding towards people and say, oh, like this person just has a certain set of facts that they're dealing with, and I have a certain set of facts that I'm dealing with. It's opened me up to like feeling more connected with humans, right? Whereas before I'd be like, fuck those guys, right? They're a bunch of jocks or dicks or whatever. And so I learned that it's a little more complex than that, a little more like
jiu-jitsu seems to be
like.
like.
You don't want to be like BFF, no, but
it's almost like playing chess. It's like a physical form of chess.
It is, and the one thing that I realized is that it's like playing chess with like your training partners for an extended period of time, so that they're getting better and you're getting better, and you're helping each other. So like, I've gone to jiu-jitsu for 14 months, and I won 3 times, and I go there 5 days a week, and I get the shit kicked out of me, you know? And
There's no punching.
There's no punching. It's like joint locks and chokes, and you get pretty quick feedback when you're like starting to pass out or you feel like your elbow's gonna break.
Do you ever deal with anybody that's a bit excessive in the force that they apply?
The funny thing, Joseph, is this: that the people like that don't last there very long because their ego gets in the way. Because you have to be able and willing to go there and be okay with like losing for a long time before you And so that's like a great lesson for me because I was one of these people who wanted to just be good at shit and never got the message that like this type of stuff takes like legitimately years and decades worth of work. It's mastery of something. And I never understood. You know what I mean? I was either discouraged or comparing myself to other people. And so that like comparing yourself to other people is like another sign for me of like me being disconnected from mankind. You know what I mean? And the more I can go into places where my first reaction is like, I always kind of have a detector in me where it's like where I think I'm like, I start to like judge, that means I'm like intimidated. You know what I mean? And so when I put myself in situations where I feel like I'm going to judge people and then go actually interact with them to learn something, it's really valuable and beneficial. And I think it's something that everyone should do because it's a way to ward off like stagnation, But the reason I was saying is
a friend of mine did a piece on a train once. He did a piece that said stagnation, and then he wrote stagnation is creative death.
It's absolutely true.
You got to keep going, and I think for some people, they find, like I said, they find rhythm that they operate in. That rhythm becomes tradition.
Yep.
They have family, and that family is born out of that same tradition.
Of course, it's just something my dad did.
And then there is something that is also related to that called family values. Mm-hmm. And the family values are given to the next generation and saying, we found a rhythm that works, and we found a way to be satisfied in this rhythm. And we very much are against welcoming in anything radical or opposite to this. We've married our faith into this system, and that's why you have this diverse assortment of people that call themselves Americans.
Absolutely, but I also think it's why right now there's like a definite divide. People are divided culturally, is because change in the past has happened over generations, and I think with the internet, which I want to talk a little bit about with you, just because I
you could ask me anything.
Right, guy, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on where you think how that's impacted the world.
The internet.
Yeah, but I think that the way that things have changed so quickly culturally that people who do have these values and traditions, good or bad, feel threatened. Particularly if they're ones that become unfavorable quickly overnight.
Let's say, go into that. What do you mean by that?
I think people are, designed to change and evolve at a slower pace than say Twitter, So, and when things like Facebook and Twitter, data and information is moving at such a quick pace, and it's outpacing the value, say, of a family, right? That thinks that a woman should get married when she's 25, and her job is in the kitchen or something like that. And then there's an entire world out there that says that's not the case.
Well, that would be our parents' generation.
Right, or people who subscribe to that. Kids our age or people our age who subscribe and believe that, right?
Or appreciated that way.
I agree that if they appreciate it that way, I also think though it causes threats. Like for example, being someone who lives on Staten Island, and then
we should talk about Staten Island.
We should, because I think it's a really interesting place, and I think when, a lot of my friends who leave Staten Island, their idea about Staten Island is the feeling they had when they left, You know what I mean? So if you're like a 20-year-old guy and you leave Staten Island, you're like, you've got feelings towards it that are like a 20-year-old. And I had those same feelings when I was like, I gotta get the fuck out of this place. You know what I mean? There's something really beautiful though in the people in town, and it's also taught me a lot about empathy and like understanding towards people, right? So like town, people always say it's a very conservative place. I think it is. I also think people are conservative in the way that they're like Giants fans. Now, obviously, there's a lot more social damage or damage when you're like, say, conservative or you're very, like, say, you're a racist or something like that. There's more damage being a racist than there being Giants fans. But I don't think there's a lot of thought that like people go into when they think about like politics, you know. And I've recently like just decided like, you know, my job is to take care of myself. I'm not really concerned about the world. I have the fortune of being able to go into schools every day and help kids. So I feel like I'm adding to the greater good, so I don't feel as frustrated by the
high school,
middle schools, yeah, maybe middle schools.
Good luck, middle schools, yeah. Hybrid.
It's a hybrid, but it's also the place where people are starting to discover their identity.
Absolutely, it's a very pivotal point.
And if you have kids who are not subscribing to like the norm, you know what I mean? And yet they're talented, they still have that like innate sense of creativity and imagination. But they're also starting to become, you know, normalized into what the school system wants them to be, right? So there's definitely like these crevices where people fall into when they start to think that they're bad, right? So if you're a kid who's like just drawing in their notebook all the time, or you're just not interested necessarily in the subject, if you're going, the thing that I kind of think about with the work I do is like if you're going to a place every day, and you're told you're bad or you're not good at the subject you're studying, then you're going to eventually leave it, particularly if you're a kid. You're vulnerable, right? To like, and you're not, you haven't built the capacity yet to be like, that's bullshit. It takes a really like free kind of advanced like 12-year-old to be like, all these people are bullshit. You could feel it, you know? It's like that follow your heart thing. You can feel that, but you doubt yourself. And so middle school is wonderful for allowing to have programs where kids are getting a chance to like create art or to build things that is outside their daily work because they can have some success where maybe they didn't have it.
You said it right there, program.
Absolutely.
I believe that public school often is less about education and more about programming.
Yeah, well,
the people who attended.
The school system in America still, even though now, you know, like when we were young, the jobs that exist now didn't even exist when people were preparing students for them. And the jobs that we're telling kids are going to exist, we don't know if they'll exist. The robots, AI will take them over. And that system itself was really designed to train factory workers, right? So you're talking about a 100-year-old system. It's like if you went to the doctor and they you know, wanted to see if you had cancer, and instead of like checking using an MRI machine, they like bled you. That's how old the system is. So it was meant to prepare people to go in the same time every day and leave, right? The same way the factory bell was like at like 8 o'clock in the morning and you leave at 4. It was really to make sure that people were going to be able to contribute to the economy in a way that they'd be workers, right? And now,
Worker bees,
but we live in a world that doesn't need worker bees, or they're working in a different part of the world, right?
Well, we're transferring over from being an industrial nation to being whatever the fuck this is, a technologically
that's the
driven
funny
civilization. What is this civilization?
Do you see how now they talk about how kids should learn to computer program and do all this? Is a big push.
Sure.
Like kids need to learn to code, but the truth is, they want to teach kids to code, like Mark Zuckerberg and Pixar and these large corporations. They have this thing called Hour of Code, where for 1 week in the school year, they push for every kid in America to learn how to code, and they have this like browser-based app that allows them to code. But the truth is, and I didn't realize this until like a few years after the initiative started, is that they want code to become the new literacy, because that's the new literacy, right?
Sure.
Those jobs, those software developer jobs, are no longer $100,000 a year entry level jobs, right? They become $12 an hour jobs.
Well, then you need the more advanced versions of that, which, being gifted. It's kind of like being an artist or something like that. Oh, this person is very eloquent in their use of code.
Right. Well, this person can write a program that no one else can, or they come in to troubleshoot they become the managers of the code hounds. You know what I mean? Where they can come in and really like figure out how to process this thing quicker, or put the finishing touches on, and they become part of the manager class.
Well, mathematics is a language. It's an ancient language.
Absolutely.
It's the language of this understanding this universe.
Yeah.
You can break things down with mathematics. That ones and zeros way of mathematics.
Yeah.
Computers, that's that new language. This next version that we're all acclimating to becoming addicted to.
Well, that's the thing is I feel almost now that I miss like having AOL, where I remember I went around. Remember they had those like penny saver magazines that they
I delivered those a little bit. They paid $12 a month, like that.
Check, so you'd have to go open a bank account.
Mm-hmm.
I would steal the Netscape or the AOL 500 hours and keep putting them in my computer so the 500 hours. And I missed that because it was actually going on the internet for information, right? Or it was like this. It was like an adventure. And now I don't even feel like I go on the internet. I feel like I told you, like I get rid of Instagram. I'll use it to try to put up a poster for my show just because I like the idea of making the poster each time.
Yeah.
But I feel like those aren't even like the internet. It's like Twitter and Instagram are these
websites have become apps.
Right, and so there's these things right on the way to the internet. I never get there anymore. It's very scary. From a behavioral aspect, standpoint, it's scary. But also, like, I just don't know the value in it. And then I feel crazy that I don't know the value in it because I feel like, is this a sign that you're just getting old? Or you're becoming like traditional, and talking about the old internet? Is that like?
Well, there is a
analog to like the old telephone, like I remember when we had telephones.
There is a tradition in feeling old.
Absolutely. I don't know if I want to necessarily be part of it though. You know what I mean?
Well, let's say something. One of the things that I've learned is the importance in taking in all of these influences. That consume you, that pull you in.
Yeah.
There is an importance to be in the present, to be in the now.
Right. How do you, I don't want to interrupt you.
No, let me keep going. Because I'm not done saying what I want to say on it, is when you go into Instagram and you start scrolling and going through it, you're being programmed. You're interacting with people through this platform. You're getting lost in other people's lives through their stories, or you're commenting on their pictures, or you're on the back end having full conversations. You're using Instagram like an email.
Yeah.
You're using it like a website. You're using it as this way of people being able to know what's going on in your life.
Or the life that you're kind of portraying.
Or the life that you're portraying. Or you get caught up in measuring yourself against other people.
I suffer from that, man. And it's a weird thing. I always feel like graffiti, right? Like, and I that's what I wanted to ask you about, like the connection between like what it must feel like to be someone like you who has and had like street fame, you know what I mean? And now this digital thing that's like, because is there a drive in graffiti? There's a drive, but it's to be known among your peers, right?
Well, these things that we do in our lives, reasons change for why we do what we do.
But say like you're as a young person, right? Like, is there what's the drive, right? Like from knowing a couple of people who, who wrote.
What's the drive in doing graffiti?
Yeah.
From when I started?
Yeah, as a young person, when you want to go out every night, is it a compulsion? Does it become a compulsion?
It becomes something. Graffiti can become something that you feel is addictive because you don't know what else to measure it against. I'm going to talk for a little bit.
Yeah.
When we do something and we have even the slightest knack for it as a teenager, and if we end up doing something by our own choice, it wasn't something that was forced onto you, like a parent trying to force Little League onto you or something like that. It's this thing that you stumbled onto that's a little bit edgy, a little bit rebellious, a little bit punk rock or whatever. And you get into that. For some people it's skateboarding. For some people it's street skating. For other people, it's graffiti. Other people it's fucking having unprotected sex and going to clubs and trying to find girls to fuck. Yeah. Or smoking weed for some people, drinking 40s, finding ways to get alcohol while you're underage. Some things can feed you positively, some things can be self-destructive. If you don't know yourself, the worst thing you could do is retreat.
Right.
And I think that for some young people who don't have a sense of themselves and get really tied up in, say, alcohol is a retreat. It's a false sense of bravery for some.
It's scary.
It's them detaching from themselves or hitting some lows that they have to escape from or whatever. For other people, it's just a social thing to do.
Yeah.
And they can balance it out. For some people, it's excessive. It all depends on who you are. But for me, with graffiti, I grew up with a very dysfunctional upbringing, very dysfunctional, and everything all culminated to a point of being separated from members of my family, and I had freedom and time, and I felt that void.
Right.
So I was looking for something, and I came across graffiti. Like someone brought Videograph to my house, and I watched Videograph 6, and I was just so blown away because it was a higher level of quality of graffiti shown in that video, and I immediately wanted to do it. And I felt an enjoyment of being outside, making something, creating and doing it where I'm not supposed to. It reminded me of when I was younger and we would go play manhunt, or we'd go exploring, we'd go into an empty building, or we'd climb, see if we could get up onto a roof.
Yeah.
We used to climb trees and shit like that, go, to do things that were throw rocks at buses, that kind of stuff. Just sort of push the boundaries a bit, push the rules a bit, and also learn about our environment, and in doing that, learning about ourselves. So when graffiti came along, I said, oh, this is like manhunt, except I'm dealing with the police trying to catch me instead of my friends. Oh, this is like going exploring, looking for like an old building and going into it and looking around. With the exception, I also get to leave my artwork behind. I get to leave my name, whatever, behind to say I was there. It also gave me an excuse to travel.
Right.
Whereas before, I had a curiosity of going to places, but I never did because I had never been on an airplane. I never. Everybody went to Florida and all these kind of places. I never been to any of those places.
Yeah.
To this day, I'm 39 years old. I've never been to Disney World, Disneyland, anything like that. I've done collaborations with Disney.
Right.
They offered me a lifetime pass once, and I told them no. I just never been to Disney World.
Yeah.
I figured that if I ever have a kid, I'll go there with them.
I don't even want kids to know about it because how kids have to know that.
Well, it's a world. They don't. The reason why they call it a world is kids get wrapped up in the fantasy of what this false sense of reality that Disney, presents in various forms, because Disney is growing. Disney is now the Star Wars franchise, and it's one of, like, Bugs Bunny is Disney now?
Warner Brothers.
Is Warner Brothers? I don't know if they are or they are not.
Yeah.
But
they've got the 10th.
Marvel is Disney now. It's just this growing thing, and it's just a form of control.
Right.
It's this form of control that subliminally, conditions, programs young adults, young beings. So, for me, I was looking for something in graffiti. I was looking for myself, and I was lost. I was also afraid of ever doing drugs. To this day, I've never done cocaine, never done heroin or meth or these crack or any of these kind of things. I don't even think I've really ever smoked a cigarette, but I've done all these other things. I've done psychedelics, mushrooms, acid, marijuana, DMT, ayahuasca. I've done all of these things. And I found that this end of indulging into yourself, that I end up learning something.
You walk away with like some message.
You walk away with something profound if you treat it with respect.
Absolutely.
If you disrespect something that's powerful, you're gonna get checked.
Right.
Same thing with alcohol. You can sip on alcohol and it can take the edge off of you. But if you disrespect what it does, then it will give it back to you.
Oh, I know.
When you have one type of thing, doing mushrooms, you might gain an insight, or what it does is it fires up your brain, and parts of your brain that don't normally communicate with one another communicate with one another.
Right.
They say that mushrooms are more connected to human beings than they are with other plants.
It's
with
like
DNA.
It's like that stone ape kind of thing.
Well, there's that, sure. And mushrooms have been around for billions of years.
Of course.
They are something that is grown out of this living planet.
Right.
And I believe that this planet is a living organism. If it wasn't alive, nothing would grow out of it. Nothing would be birthed out of it.
Do you feel like before you had like a lot of psychedelic experiences?
It has a consciousness.
Right. The planet.
Oh yeah, it does.
But do you feel like before you had like meaningful psychedelic experiences where you were like taking psychedelics with an intent or with an intention to gain something from it, did you have like kind of feelings or like a hunch that those truths were out there and you were looking for them?
When I was young, I felt like I didn't belong in the situation that I was in.
Yeah.
I grew up, like I said, in a broken home. I grew up not knowing parts of myself, a lot of my history. I was very curious. And a way that I could feed that imagination was by drawing. So I drew.
Right, there.
And then just also by having brothers and interacting, we didn't have money. So we would have to be inventive with ways to have fun.
Yeah.
If we didn't have a ball to play baseball, we would take an old sock and wrap it in tape as a ball. Or we would find things in the weeds and turn them into things or whatever, or we would create games.
The weeds.
I'm born in Brooklyn. I moved to Staten Island for, and I grew up in Midland Beach on Olympia Boulevard. And I grew up in a neighborhood where there was fucking open lots of nothing but weeds. I lived in a bungalow.
I love one thing I missed, and I was talking to someone else about this recently, but you kind of described it like that like innate feeling of adventure as a kid, and that there's the unknown of the wilderness out there. We have this natural thing where we want to explore, and you're really tapped into it as a kid. And the weeds were perfect for that. It's particularly like when they were like, there's always rumors from older people. I found playboys in there, or the devil worshippers in there. And so it was like this unknown boundary that you push, you continue to push.
And over where you're from, we used to go in Miller Field in the woods there. There's that thing called the Pill Box behind the police station. Like we used to go and hang out there, and sometimes there would be stuff there, like you could tell people were doing drugs there, or there was like some satanic looking things or whatever. And to be a kid and to go over there and ride your bikes over there and stuff like that, you're very much in the moment because you're trying to encounter something new.
Right.
As a kid, we have this desire to feed ourselves. So for adults who maybe have successfully been programmed, or they fell into their rhythms, or their new sense of adventure is being stressed by debt, and trying to find this way out of it, and looking forward to the 2 weeks a year that they're allowed to live their life, called a vacation. And what do? They tend to go on a cruise. This artificial environment.
On the schedule as well.
And it's scheduled, or they go to an all-inclusive resort. This artificial environment, this false sense of the Dominican Republic or the Bahamas or Acapulco or wherever. It's these things that we create for ourselves, these safe places to eat all you want and to drink all you want, and then you feel like you had a vacation and you saw something outside of your box.
I suffer from the thing where I don't necessarily live in that world, but I'm around enough people who do that I find myself doubting or believing there are benefits to it. Like, not that there's benefits to it, but that it seems a lot easier. Does that make sense?
What do you mean by that?
That there would be no questions or any kind of internal conflicts if I were able to just kind of say this is the way life is, and kind of believe in some type of this is just the way it is. This is
most people are that way.
I want to say though it is. It's not easier. But there's some. I sometimes feel, particularly when I'm questioning like what I'm up to. There's something to be said about it that, and this has to do with learning to be okay with who you are. You know, like me, you sound like you're perfectly okay with who you are. Like learning to be okay with it and loving yourself.
Loving yourself is essential. Self-respect is essential.
It's also one of those things that I used to think was like a truth, and it didn't require work. You know, you were kind of talking about being in the moment. You obviously have this like go-to, right? Or does life, like, say, as someone who's now, this is your job? Does it become like
I'm just living my life, and I found a way to finance it.
Right. But so does this become like a job then, or not? Is this still like this? You know,
it's all. We put all these little sticky note labels on what all these different things are.
Right.
We say, this is a job. This is a passion project. This is dinner. This is family time. This is this. This is that. But you're just living.
Right.
Those labels have a way of affecting your ability to navigate all of it. You start dividing yourself up into all these categories.
And also the way you see it, like the way that you see things then becomes tainted by how you categorize it.
Of course, but all of this stuff is the byproduct of the program.
Absolutely.
I'm going to say this, that this way of falling into a rhythm which is tradition or acceptable or normal or whatever, it's all set into our minds through education.
Mm-hmm.
And education is programming.
Absolutely.
It's to keep us from being in a state of being imaginative or connecting to something deeper than the physical world, unless it's profitable or coded, mathematical, technological. Can you make money on it? It's all those kind of things. That's the way that we're raised to be code, to be worker bees. Unless you come from a situation where your parents can fund you to go to some Montessori school or some sort of out-of-the-box progressive thing, or you're homeschooled, or your parents actually put that time in to feed the soul as a child. We don't learn that, because if you look at children, a toddler is very curious and just amazed at everything, amazed at the smallest things, being able to fucking take a shit in the toilet is fucking mind-blowing. Going swimming for the first time, it's mind-blowing. That curiosity and inventiveness is affected when you take that child and you throw that child into preschool. And that just sort of leads into kindergarten. And then you have all these grades and this pressure and this fear that's instilled in children. If you don't do well here, well then it's going to affect the rest of your life. Right. And we fall into this rhythm of it's either right or it's wrong. It's black or white. And you grow up being conditioned to be measured, constantly measured, and status and way you see yourself and all this kind of stuff. So then you start to chase these things out of fear. People go to school and they accumulate large amounts of debt. And then let's say they graduate with some sort of diploma or degree or whatever. Their hope is to find a job in that field. A lot of times these things that are associated more with creativity or dreams, these people can't find jobs because they never found themselves as an artist or something like that. We'll talk about art. Well, someone comes out of school that's an artist. They got a bachelor's in fine arts. They say, all right, well now I want to be an artist. So they're trying to do it, and they ain't making no money doing it because they're just doing something that's very academic. They perhaps went to school and were just doing things to please the professor or the assignment or whatever. They were playing that game, but they never really found themselves.
Right. These people, artistic integrity.
Yeah, these people end up becoming interns. Yeah. They end up working for free or something like that, trying to gain something. But one of the things that I've learned in all the people that I've taught in my life is you cannot teach passion. Right. That if you do not have that passionate drive, that self-motivation already embedded in you, then you haven't found that thing that really drives you. You're just doing something because you think
it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. I mean, then that's fine too, but not everybody finds it. You just have to continue to search, and it has to be something that is deep-rooted. A lot of people, they end up coming out of school in tremendous debt. They, out of fear, I think they're given a certain amount of months to start paying back their student loans.
Yeah. And then they go and
they get into a job. Let's say they get on the ground floor of a job or whatever. They can never leave that job,
right? Because
if they leave that job, they're going to lose the medical benefits. The food that you're eating is highly processed and designed to make you sick, and you're told that it's good. The water that you're drinking is filled with intoxicants, fluoride, that calcifies your pineal gland, the ability to imagine something outside of this. And you're in this box, and you make just enough to cover your rent and your loans, and to drink because you don't have a fucking life,
right?
Or to live some life or to battle your cocaine addiction or whatever the hell it is you gained in college. And then you end up maybe meeting somebody and you end up having a kid, so you shed your cocaine addiction or whatever.
Replace it with something else
and
more acceptable.
At that point you say, well shit, I gotta find myself. What am I gonna do? Fuck, I ain't got the money to do it because I'm in debt. I'm on some, you got this fucking note. It's kind of like buying a house. Some of these college fucking tuition things, it's like you have like this mountain of debt, like you just bought a fucking house. And as soon as you get finished paying off the loans, you're gonna buy a house.
Of course. Well, a lot of people.
And then you fucking that's the shackle in the
Well, I think
holder.
the debt was designed that way, in order to ensure that people go into the workforce and not have
Credit
that
cards.
exploratory.
Credit cards
Yeah.
are designed to blacklist people. That's what it is. When you fall into bad credit, those credit card companies essentially blacklist you from opportunity in the future.
Yeah, like opening a business, say, for example.
Opening a business, getting a loan for a car, getting a loan for a house.
Yeah.
Any of those things are affected by, the way these credit card companies, categorize you. So it's all designed to be a trap. And I noticed, I'll tell you what I noticed. I noticed it when I was in jail. I got into graffiti, lost, and I got sucked into it. And you went to IS-24?
Yeah.
We went to the same middle school.
Yeah.
We're the same age?
Yeah.
You born in 79?
Yeah.
So am I. So 8th grade is when I really got into graffiti on Staten Island, and I was enjoying it. I was like having sex at fucking 13 and 14.
Yeah.
I was having sex with girls and doing graffiti, and I had a clique of friends and stuff like that, and we were in some quasi little gang where we shaved our heads and beat each other up or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I went to art and design high school in Manhattan. It took me 2 hours to get there. And by the time I get there, I'd be fucking tired. And I got in there with, I didn't have to take a test for architecture. And I suck at math. I didn't have a portfolio to show for regular, art. So I didn't apply that way. I applied for architecture, and I was terrible at math, so I never
Just got scared.
I couldn't understand, because everything had to be in perspective or structurally sound, and I wanted to be creative. So I ended up going there just to hook up with other graffiti writers. And I really didn't fit in that school. There were people coming from all 5 boroughs to that school, and it was just like, I didn't enjoy the classes I was in.
Yeah.
And so I just cut out and would do graffiti all the time, and I learned a lot more about art through doing graffiti than I did from going to art and design high school. But I still didn't know myself. I was figuring myself out through life experiences, but also being tremendously dysfunctional and tremendously lost. And when I would get arrested for graffiti, I was told, when are you going to grow up? When are you going to cut this shit out? You're addicted to this.
By the family.
By any of them.
Yeah.
By anyone that's looking out for my best interest, because they grew up in a society where you're programmed to have a very safe life.
Yeah.
And to not break the law or do anything, disobey in any fashion, because you end up in jail. It ends up ruining your ability to get a job. Because if you have a felony, if you have charges, it affects the way people treat you. It affects your ability to be able to work and get out of this trap. So I ended up getting arrested a few times for graffiti on Staten Island. The second time I got arrested, I was on Highland Boulevard, and I was doing a tag. No, that was the first time. The second time I was behind a gas station in Great Hills doing a piece. The cops put the guns on us or whatever, and I was 16, and I was old enough to go to regular jail at that point. So I got shipped to Brooklyn. I was in Brooklyn House on Atlantic Avenue, and I went to jail, and it was like urban camping. I was like a little kid amongst all these people, trying to hold my shit in because I didn't want to take a shit in a room of 60 men.
Yeah.
Whatever. But when I got out of there, I moved to New Jersey because I got kicked out of my aunt's house. She gave away my dog and gave away my art shit. And then I was sent to New Jersey, and I went to New York for a couple of months, high school. And then got arrested again and went to New Jersey. When I was in New Jersey, I was sleeping in the hallway of my mom and, stepfather, and my brothers were all there. And it was a small little 2-bedroom apartment. There was nowhere to sleep, so I slept in the hallway. And I was like, I need to get the fuck out of Perth Amboy. It's like, it's like highly concentrated with Hispanic speaking people. And I ended up in this high school where everybody was really into like salsa and bachata and all this kind of stuff. I did not fit into that school at all. And graffiti wasn't a thing. Art wasn't really all that.
It was like pussy-ish or something.
It just wasn't, that click wasn't there. And I just thought, you know what, maybe I need to stop doing graffiti, get myself a girlfriend, get the hell out of high school.
At this point, did you start to think like, I got something wrong with me? Like,
I felt like what everybody was saying was true, that I was addicted to this self-destructive thing that was causing problems in my life. It was the reason why I didn't have a girlfriend. It was the reason why I was getting in trouble. It was the reason why I was stuck now in fucking Perth Amboy, New Jersey.
So like that was the big part of the tale.
And I wanted to go back to Staten Island, because I thought like Staten Island was more civil than Perth Amboy, New Jersey. Well, I'm glad that happened, because when I moved to New Jersey, I ended up meeting some people that did graffiti, but they were just sort of doing it behind bridges and under bridges and all this kind of stuff. And I realized that there was so much more potential in New Jersey to do graffiti than there was in New York. I met people that like didn't eat meat by choice. I never knew that.
It's like a punk rock show.
I never knew that existed.
Right.
I thought like, oh, what's the matter with you? What happened? And they're like, oh no, I choose not to eat meat.
Yeah, your world.
I was blown away by that.
Yeah.
I never heard of the Misfits.
Yeah.
I was exposed to different sort of tastes and ways of life. I never tried fucking Indian food before. Sushi, all this kind of shit, because I grew up in a very conventional environment. And because I was taken out of my environment, I was being fed with new experiences. And I flourished, graffiti-wise, in New Jersey. I ended up doing a lot of graffiti in New Jersey. And it all culminated to a point where there were like these state attorney generals or whatever, task force or something that came and like started looking for me and stuff like that. Yeah, they had a really big case, and they ended up arresting me for conspiracy to commit criminal mischief, which is stupidest charge.
Right.
Criminal mischief is nothing. It's like a fine.
But the conspiracy
made it big, and they gave me $100,000 bail, arrested me. I was working at Sears in the Woodbridge Mall.
So they're gonna make an example out of you.
They tried to scare me into telling all my friends.
The biggest guy, and then scare the shit out of you.
Yeah, and that kind of stuff is not going to work, because for me, graffiti has always been something deep-rooted and based off of principle. So I would rather die than betray that.
Absolutely.
So I got arrested, and they put me $100,000 bail, and I wore my brother's shoes that were 2 sizes too small, because when they arrested me, I didn't let them go in my room. So I put on my brother Demos' shoes. I didn't wear my glasses. I didn't even tell them, I was in there for a month, I didn't even tell them I didn't eat meat at the time, and didn't tell them that. And they like scared me and tried to do all this stuff to me, whatever, get me to tell, I didn't. And I was stuck there. Because my bail was so high, I was in like a section with people that had high bails.
Yeah.
People that murdered, people that were going to court for attempted murder, bank robbers, rapists.
Got criminalized.
I was in a small section of maybe like 60 people that were all higher level, important
Real criminals.
inmates.
Yeah.
The guy in my cell hung 5-6 banks or something like that between New York and New Jersey.
You're like a 17-year-old kid.
Yeah, and he said the key to not getting caught is smearing lemon juice on your face before you go rob the bank.
That sounds like some superstition right there.
Yeah,
obviously it didn't work.
He sold all the drugs in the pot. He was getting them off in Little Debbie snacking parties. Get like the CO was bringing it to him at night, and he was giving the CO cash.
It's like basically a prison movie. Like it was like all this shit about prison and it was real.
He he started managing me because I showed him that I knew how to draw. And I started doing handkerchiefs and birthday cards and stuff for people for like commissary, like ramen noodles and candy bars and stuff like that. While I was in there, I traded away my brother's sneakers and got like some, like jail boots. And when the guy would go out to go to the yard, go play basketball or whatever, I go steal his Playboy under his bed and jerk off. Or I'd sit in there and, if you've ever been to jail overnight, when you go to sleep and you're waking up, you're rebooting your computer, you're realizing you're waking up, and you're like, oh fuck, I'm still here, this is a reality. And you're like, shit. And I reached kind of a low point in my life at that time. I spent my 20th birthday in jail at this time, and I reached this conclusion that what I'm doing, something needs to change. Because I was refusing to make a living off of what I do creatively, what I do as a passion. I felt like if I sold my passion, then I would be pouring myself, selling out. So I chose to work shitty jobs that I didn't care about, take that money and do travel and do graffiti.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
You I've heard this saying before. You fearful of success. I don't even know what it means sometimes because all the times like people.
No, I wanted to be accepted for something.
But in like a certain group, you didn't want to be like that pivotal moment where you said I'm going to make this thing work for me so that I don't have to wander back here.
What I did is I just said that something needs to change. Mm-hmm. And I said either I need to stop doing graffiti and just get my life together and find a way to feed myself, because I needed to feed myself. I wanted to do something creative, but it didn't have to be art. I wanted to share or communicate or do something. But I didn't want to whore myself. I didn't want to sell my soul, trade my soul for money.
Right.
For money that we put faith in has value. And then on the other hand, I was still drawn to do graffiti. And I felt good about it, but in some ways I felt shameful about it because people were saying that it's an addiction. And then at that point, I kind of started thinking about it, and I remember some things my brother said. My brother said, well, you're lucky. My younger brother said, you're lucky that you have something in your life that you want to do. You have a passion, you have something that you want to put your energy into. I don't have that. I wish I had that. I thought about that, and I thought about my connection to graffiti and how I'm shamed into doing it and it being an addiction. And then I said, you know what, this isn't an addiction, it's a passion.
Right.
And I should feel fortunate to have at least one passion in my life. And so at that point, I just sort of thought about it some more, and I stopped apologizing for who I am or what I choose to do. And I decided then that I was going to embrace what I'm doing and not hide it. And just, I was, like I said, I spent my 20th birthday locked up there. 20 years old, you're an adult, So I started to just do what I'm going to do, not feel bad about it, to see it as something positive, and to find a way to make it work in my life. And so it's not self-destructive. So I came out, I eventually got out, that bail got reduced, and I had enough money to get out, came out of debt. And I started to make paintings, more like I actually tried to make paintings that had something to do with my look of what I made as a graffiti writer. And I started to try to make graphics. I started to try to do things on a computer, made a website and all this kind of stuff, and learned about the internet. Learned about the internet too from jerking off, too. Learn how to navigate, the web and sign up.
I feel like
that.
you're like a wise person, but not like now you're wise as an adult, but you were wise, you're born with the gift of wisdom, man. Because just not identifying as like a 12-year-old or whatever, that you have this thing that made you feel good, and then treating it with respect, but then also 20. One thing that I always think about, and I think about Sims a lot, is that like I always felt sad for him after he had the same situation, because I don't think that he knew what to do afterwards. You know what I mean? And it resulted in
he started to embrace more into music.
Yeah, but I also think like he felt like a void. You know what I mean? And
well, that void is there. It could be something that you've been carrying longer than you realize. You know, some of these behaviors that we have as adults, we can attribute it, it's because of this. Or perhaps it goes even further back than you think.
I mean, I don't know the statistics, but why do you think like you'd be able to, I'm sure you've had to think about this in your life, but why do so many graffiti artists die? Is it like a...
Well, graffiti attract. Think about this, right? I'm gonna say it. Here's this thing. Here's this world, this subculture of people that go out and commit a crime and want people to know that they did it through an alias. And it's not super cool, or it's an obscure thing that some people think are cool. A lot of them are already coming from issues, and a lot of them are coming from a lack of respect within themselves, broken, or self-destructive, or just fucking wild. You know, whatever these things are, there's something askew in their development. So they figure themselves out doing graffiti.
Kind of like gravitate towards
and it's just maybe it's a rebellion of the programming from school.
Right.
You know, it's like, well, fuck all this shit. I'm gonna have fucking fun, and this is fun. And then they end up becoming better at it. And you know, a lot of graffiti writers, they don't even consider themselves to be artists.
I think that comes maybe from like coming from a working class background. Like I noticed that if you come from like a working class, lower middle class background, the way you kind of do, and it goes back to what we talked about earlier. There's kind of a shame in that, where that's not possible. And I've talked to other friends about this, like friends who are made their living as musicians, and they're like, I didn't say that I was a musician to like anyone until I had like known that I could do this for the rest of my life, or I didn't say I was an actor until I was like knew that this was the thing that like would pay my bills. And it's funny because it kind of leads me into how do you navigate the world that like maybe you kind of have a foot in now, which is like people are coming from different backgrounds than you that aren't, that I would say like higher socioeconomic background. But I did notice that when people feel really uncomfortable about.
You could come from a good background and still get sucked into this kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of different reasons why people get into graffiti.
Yeah.
But there is something that people get from doing it. When you walk up to, a property and you start painting on it without permission, and if you're doing it in front of bystanders, people, or you're going and painting on the side of a highway, out in traffic, or you're painting on a train and there are people inside of the train or whatever, you're taking this risk, and there's a lot of adrenaline that's in you. There's this excessive excitement, and then you're leaving this thing behind, and you're maybe getting chased, or maybe you're fighting with people as a result of you painting over them, or this, that. There's this excessive lifestyle that is filled with a lot of intensity. So it tends to attract people that enjoy this type of stuff. A lot of the people that get into this type of stuff are also excessive in other ways.
Right.
They're also excessive with drinking. They're also excessive with drug use. They're also excessive with taking risks, physical risks.
How did graffiti change like now?
That's why they die. That's why there's a lot of motherfuckers that die. It's because they fucking live. They died living.
Yeah, I think
or escaping.
I haven't really worked it out, like some type of theory, but I feel like in 50 years when people look at the kind of work that you do, you did as a graffiti artist, and the people who are like famous graffiti artists, there's an analogy between those people and like say the beatniks or people who are really bent on living the moment and not really concerned about how long that moment lasts.
Movements.
It's very American too in a way, and I understand, you know, like
it's very human. It's very human because
the caves in France.
It's just it's a movement. It's a way of being that collectively becomes appreciated amongst a circle of people. That way of being and operating evolves, and then there becomes this average sense of tradition.
Yeah.
And people, by participating in this act, they're not just participating in the act. They're, you know, becoming a part of the culture.
Yeah.
So that whole kind of thing, it can be extremely insightful and educational, and you can learn so much about yourself in diving in so heavily into it. Just the same, there are some people that can get into it and limit themselves and not experience much. You know, there were all sorts of variables that can come out of it. But the one thing that happened to me was graffiti gave me an excuse to travel the world.
Yeah.
I've been to so many places that I would never have even had a desire to go to had it not been for graffiti. And to say, I've been to places that are important to visit in your lifetime of being a human being on this planet.
Right.
But within these cities, I might not have been to all of the checklist tourist attractions. I've seen the back end of many...
With people who live in those cities.
Yeah, I've seen the back end of many cities or places in this world. I've seen parts of countries or parts of the way this system runs that are not meant for public viewing. Or, you know, participated and done things that are just straight up fucking criminal. But it's the good kind of criminal. It's a Robin Hood style of criminal where I'm not taking, I'm actually leaving something behind.
How is the feeling now, like for example, the people you said about like, you know, fighting people who off walls or do stuff like that, and now it seems like and even this is like correlated.
Fighting at people, like being upset at people that won't pay over.
But now I think people like get like public grants to like write on the wall that was, you know, had a beautiful piece by a graffiti writer on it, and this person's just like a mural artist, right? Is that?
Well, those are all those are all just terms to help people understand where things stand. But we're all artists, right? When you take something internal and express it, and there are many ways to express it. You know, you can say it, you can sing it, you can write it, you could create it, craft it. There's more than one way to be creative. So it's the arts, the arts of anything. And I think that when it comes to, say, graffiti, this is just a word. This word was made by the media. They called it graffiti, which means to write, to put your name into the surface. You know, graffiti and vandalism are not necessarily synonymous.
Right. But they
think about this, like people say, oh, well, graffiti is vandalism. And then you'll be painting something like, oh, wow, that's art. Or you'll be painting graffiti somewhere and be like, oh, wow, that's amazing, I like the colors. You should be an artist.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's people use terms like little grips on a wall. They're trying to understand something.
Stature.
You know, and we use these things called words.
How was your transition into like the gallery world? Like, was it?
Who knows? It just keeps going. But what I'm saying is that these terms, even gallery, what a gallery is a space where you hang some artwork.
Yeah.
People come and look at it, and perhaps they buy it.
Yeah.
That's a gallery. A gallery can be anywhere. You know, what's a gallery and what's not a gallery. what's an artist, what's not an artist. Is graffiti art? Is graffiti not art because it's a crime? Or is graffiti a crime when it's done with permission? If I'm painting on someone's wall illegally, and then that person comes out of their house or their business, or they look and see me painting on their truck, and they say, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" You say, "Oh, I'm painting on this." And they say, "Oh, I love it. Please continue, do more."
Have you had that experience?
Yes, multiple times.
I can imagine.
So if what I'm painting is what I'm painting,
right,
and I'm doing it illegally, and that's considered graffiti, vandalism. If that person all of a sudden comes out of the process of it and comes out and says, "Oh my God, I love it, keep doing it," has it stopped in the middle of it becoming graffiti or vandalism?
Yeah, right.
Has it now become something else? No, it's still the same thing, and I'm still doing it no matter what.
Right.
These terms are just little placeholders for people to understand something that's much deeper. That's language.
Yeah.
So it's safe to just call it art, and you are just creating. You are being a human being. You are doing what we are wired to do, which is to create in some form, and to question and push things. Because where we were 200 years ago is not where we are now.
Yeah.
And that comes from this embedded, fucking maniacal drive to move forward.
This show, like the process here, like as far as this stuff goes, you're layering that on through these.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all collaged in. I draw all these elements on paper, and then as I continue to paint it, I start to just sort of hover these things over the painting and just find little places to put things in.
Right.
And then I go in and mark them down and fill them in, and then go ahead and outline them. Like you can see here, these are going to get outlined today with brush and stuff like that. But it's an improv collage of something that is happening, something like water. It just knows where it goes. It just flows into itself. And I just keep adding variables in that can shift or support.
How do you know when something's done?
It has to feel. It's all feeling. It's feeling balanced. It's feeling like there's a flow where something is, if something is really heavy in one area, and then something's light in this area, and something's heavy in this area, does it feel right? Does it feel like it needs something? It's like food. How do you know when your dinner is done? How do you know when you Frankenstein a bunch of shit in the fridge and make something that it's going to taste good? You just figure it out. You trial and error. Some things get overcooked, some things taste like shit, but you love them anyway because you made them.
Right.
But it's important to be an artist. It's important to have taste.
How long do you think that it took you to develop? I know in other, say in writing, people talk about voice, or I feel like your style has been distinct for a very long time, on walls, right? But I know you're always pushing to find a new technique or a new kind of concept, but when did you feel like, God, I know what these things look like that? Or does that make sense?
I think that feeling. I think that feeling is only temporary.
Right. So you had it since your kid though, where you're like,
I try not to think in those terms. I just you can find a rhythm, and you can maybe hit something that leads to all sorts of successes, tipping points. When something comes in, it just impacts you, and it contributes to a lot of fast growth. But all of this stuff, it just comes. And I think that sometimes if people get too ahead of congratulating themselves, they're like, yeah, I did this.
yeah.
Their focus is on what happened in the past, so they're not in the present. just the same, there were some people that get really caught up in the future. They say, oh, I want to do this really big thing, and I'm going to do this, and I want to handle this, I want to do this. I have goals to do this, this, and that. They get so wrapped up in the fantasy of it that they forget to be in the present. There is this ability in us as artists to take all of it and have it all balance out into supporting now. And when you're in that moment, you can understand and know exactly what you need to do. But if you don't get your ass up and actually do it and apply it,
It's just an idea.
it's just an idea. It's either an idea where you know, chewing over and regurgitating aspects of the past and celebrating that and calling that tradition. Or you're just, someone that has a lot of big ideas but doesn't follow through with them. We're all guilty of everything I've just mentioned. But I think that the best way to successfully move forward is to be as in touch with yourself as you can in the present. So I have this thing that I've said quite a bit. I said to know yourself is to know the universe. To know yourself, the more you can know yourself. You'll never really know yourself. It's infinite. The more you think you have things figured out, the more you dig into it, you realize that
There's a whole other
layer of stuff. Or you get so worked up into marrying yourself to an idea, and then it all falls apart because there's this other thing to consider. It's the ability to see that there's always something else ahead, and to recognize it, and to go towards it, and to enjoy it, to enjoy the moment. Sometimes we beat ourselves up over the past, which denies us enjoying the moment, the present. And then there are people that feel like they're not where they're supposed to be, and they need to be where they are at. So they just struggle and torture themselves to get to that point. And then when they're there, they're not happy.
Well, that's something that I've learned about myself, that is an inside job, and I have to take time each day to try to remind myself to be in the present. And at this point in my life, and not in some future point, because I think for a while my job was to try to clean up the past, And what happens when you do that is you are so focused on that work that when everything's okay, or at a level where you feel comfortable in your own skin, you've developed the habit of thinking that there's something you need to fix. You know what I mean? And so, as a result, you don't stop even though things are okay. And so, I never cared about that. The way that I handled myself until I was about 30 was like proof that I really didn't care about what the outside world thought of me. In fact, I think I wanted the outside world to think of me the way I thought about myself was like, this big piece of shit that the world revolves around. You know what I mean? And so I fixed that. But now, I think my issue is that I do worry about, I don't worry about the future, but where I'm going to go in the future, or if I'm recognized for the things that I do. And I think it's really toxic. It's disturbing that I've become that.
Well, you ask yourself, what do you want to do? How do you feel right now?
Talking to you, I'm having a great time. You're echoing a lot of the things that I think about most of the day. So,
well, find ways to express that, and feed yourself with things that make you feel good. I think that again, when we fall into the traps of measuring ourselves, when we feel content in some of the things that we're doing, and we feel like we're bringing in new curiosities, and we're creating a tradition of continuously being curious and acting on it. And then we start to measure ourselves up against others, or we feel like we have to move faster at a faster pace than everyone else. Then we get caught up in that. I don't think that is healthy or creative. I don't think it's creative either. I think it falls within in any of the territory.
Well, it kills creativity because your energies and kind of focus on that.
I mean, you can enjoy, like, when I see, what I try to do is I just try to see when other people around me are doing wonderful things, or they're advancing, or I see moments where they take something and they take it to another level, or they come from an angle that I haven't considered before. You're moved by that.
Yeah.
You know, even someone going and having fun or doing something, you're moved by that. And when you're moved by that, it shakes your foundation. And if you're an insecure person, it can influence you to hate on that. And it's because you're measuring yourself up against that.
Right, and it's a totally different story.
But if you're moved by something, you shift your foundation. When you're cool within yourself, or you have self-respect,
You're like, oh, that's cool.
that's great. You know what? That's wonderful that they're doing it, and it makes me want. It moves me creatively, and I want to add
It's
to
inspiration.
that.
It's
It's inspiration. So when I'm amongst people who are doing what I do, whatever, and I see some people do things, I try to engage in conversation, or I try to suggest. I don't hold back on what I think.
Yeah.
I want to see them go as far as they can, and maybe bump into something that's new to all of us.
Right.
And I feel like we're moving, if we're talking about an art scene, we're moving that scene forward because it's influencing all of us collectively.
Right.
And in order to do that, you have to be comfortable with yourself.
Yeah.
So,
It's a full-time job.
let me take this.
Yeah, we'll kill it, and I love talking to you.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was fun.